Hi, I'm Katie Prejean-McGrady, host of Ave Explores and of The Katie McGrady Show on the Catholic Channel on SiriusXM. And I'm so excited to tell you about our upcoming Ave Explores series on the Bible. You heard me correctly, the Bible, sacred scripture. How could we possibly tackle scripture in just a few weeks with podcasts, emails, videos, and articles? Well, we're going to try. And we're going to try because, well, we want to kind of get back to basics. And sacred scripture, as complicated as it is about as basic as we can get when it comes to digging into what we believe as Catholics. You know, as Catholics, there are two pillars that hold up our church: scripture and tradition. And the stories of the saints, and we've done a series on the saints, are often rooted in their love of scripture and their living of tradition. And so we want to dig into not only, well, what makes the Bible, and why is the Bible sometimes so complicated, and what about some of those things that seem to contradict, and who wrote it in the first place, and why does it matter for my life today in the 21st century? We're going to dig into all of that, not just because we want to learn a bunch of facts, although facts are good, and not just because we want it to necessarily change our feelings about Scripture, although changing our feelings about Scripture, especially if it leads us to love Scripture, is a good thing too, but because, well, if we want to be holy people, and if we want to love our faith as much as we're called to love it, and live our faith in the real world, well then knowing our Bible, knowing sacred Scripture, loving it, living our lives according to it, sharing it with our friends, our family, our loved ones, and trying to help it take root in our hearts and in our life, well, that's really what it's all about. Back at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, my mom and my dad did a deep clean of the upstairs of my childhood home, basically digging out all the stuff in my little sister and I's old bedrooms. And my mom texted me one day and she said, "How many Bibles did you have exactly?" And I said, I don't know how many were in there. And she said, well, there was a study Bible, and there was a Greek Bible, and there was a Bible filled with a bunch of notes. It looked like from college. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's where it is. So yeah, I kind of had a thing for collecting Bibles for a time in my youth. I worked at a Catholic bookstore. I had a great discount, so I would buy quite a few of them. Most of my paycheck just went right back to buying things from the Catholic bookstore. And I was obsessed with having a bunch of different versions of sacred scripture. I'm not exactly sure why, whether it was the different translations or it was because I wanted to take notes in different ones. But as I've grown older, I've actually come to appreciate the fact that I have my Bible. It's right here. It's not as worn down as others. I got it just a couple of years ago and decided this was going to be my Bible, the one I carry with me when I travel to speak, the one I pray with in the evenings, the one I bring with me to Mass or adoration. The Bible that one day I'll pass down to my children, and hopefully they open it up and they find things inside, like a prayer card with the divine praises, or the obituary for my grandmother who passed away last year, or maybe my favorite thing that's tucked inside of my Bible, a picture of my husband and my oldest daughter, and also all the notes that I've written inside, the things that I've underlined, the passages that have stuck out to me. I have a love of sacred scripture, and I know that you probably do too. And if you don't, perhaps you want to grow in a love of sacred scripture. You want to know, why is the Old Testament sometimes so confusing, and how do things in the Old Testament connect to things in the New Testament? Why is the book of Revelation terrifying, and is it actually something involving the Mass? How has sacred scripture affected different people's lives, and maybe how could it affect mine? And that's what we're digging into. Ave Explores the Bible is as simple as we can make it to help you grow in a love of sacred scripture. Podcast episodes with scripture experts and conversations with people who read scripture every day. Videos, video archive conversations on Facebook Live where we'll dig into how does a priest prepare for the homily, and what does it mean to pray with sacred scripture visually, visio divina, and what are those Jewish roots of the Old Testament, and why do they matter to my life right now? We're going to look at how families incorporate sacred scripture into their prayer life with their kids, little or old. We're going to talk about why listening to sacred scripture, especially using this very popular Catholic app, Hallow, is so important to do, because hearing it is maybe even a little different than reading it. We're going to dig into scripture, and we want you to join us. Click on over to avemariapress.com, and right at the top you'll see a big banner. Click on it, sign up. You get an email every week starting in September. You'll have the podcast, the articles, the Facebook Live links. You can join us as we explore and dig into why sacred scripture is not only special, not only important, not only complicated, but we can dig into it and understand what it means. But why should it matter to you? Why is it something you should read every single day? A Bible that you can cling to and maybe pass on to your kids or to a loved one someday. The Bible being the anchor, one of those pillars of our scripture and tradition in the life of the church. So join us for Ave Explores the Bible. We'll see you soon, and we can't wait for you to explore sacred scripture with us.